Welcome to the Massachusetts Pavilion. We thank you very much for joining us for this important announcement. I'm Sue Wyndham-Bannister, President and CEO of the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center. I want to bring greetings also from Bob Coughlin, who's the Director of MassBio, our industry trade council, who very much wanted to be here, is unable to do so because of an unexpected loss in his family. So all of our thoughts are with Bob and his family. I have the great pleasure of introducing the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick, who is going to make this morning's announcement. When Bio was last here in 2007, Governor Patrick announced his vision for a 10-year, $1 billion investment that would coalesce and catalyze the Massachusetts life sciences community, and he signed that initiative in 2008. Since then, he remains a tireless champion for the life sciences, and in 2008 he was named Bio's Governor of the Year. I think it is fair to say that under Governor Patrick's leadership, the life sciences community in Massachusetts is exploding, and it is my honor to lead his life sciences initiative, and it is my great pleasure to introduce him to you to make this announcement. Governor Patrick?
Thank you very much, Susan, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to particularly acknowledge Jim Hoist, the president of EMD Serono, from whom we're going to hear in just a moment, and all of the distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have joined me here on the dais. Today, we announce a very important next step forward for the life sciences in Massachusetts and all across the world. From Alzheimer's to Parkinson's to multiple sclerosis, neurological diseases affect millions of Americans and millions more around the world. Lots of researchers are working independently to find a way to relieve that suffering. Today, we harness the power of collaboration. Today, we're announcing the creation of the Massachusetts Life Sciences Neurosciences Consortium, a new model through which 7 major biopharma companies will join their time, their treasure, their talent to advance research into some of humankind's most vexing neurological diseases. And we have terrific partners in this endeavor, including 7 of the global industry leaders in neuroscience. We're pleased to welcome as charter members of the consortium EMD Serono, Abbott, Biogen Idec, Janssen Research and Development, Merck, Pfizer, and Sunovion. I want to commend these 7 companies for having the courage and the vision to collaborate and for joining in this very promising new consortium. This is what leadership looks like, and we're very, very excited. I want to commend the leadership of the Life Sciences Center, Susan Wyndham-Bannister, for doing exactly what we intended the center to do, which is to serve as a convening authority, bringing together talent from around the Commonwealth, around the country, and around the world to work together on solutions that advance the human condition. For all of the many people looking for relief from their suffering, thanks to this consortium, help is on the way. I'm glad you could all be with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. As I think you know, the life sciences strategy overall is based on investments in academic research, early-stage companies, workforce development, infrastructure, partnerships, and collaboration. And we could not do our work without the support of all of these key stakeholders. Importantly, we could not do our work without the support of this administration and of our legislature. And that type of support, the leadership and the continued support that we get from the legislature, I think is very much evidenced by the presence today of Senator Jack Hart. Senator Hart, thank you. Thank you for being here today. One of the things that we're trying to do very much through the Life Sciences Center is to turn Massachusetts into a laboratory for new types of partnerships and collaborations that will significantly improve the pace and the efficiency of innovation. Over the last couple of days and through the rest of this conference, we're all going to be hearing about the tremendous global progress that our industry has made in many, many areas of need, and we should be proud of and celebrate all of this progress. But let's not forget at the same time that there are some significant therapeutic areas where breakthroughs still elude us. And there are millions of patients who are counting on us, waiting for us to make those breakthroughs. Neurosciences is one of those areas. There are millions of patients and their families who are waiting to hear that we, industry, have developed better treatments. We're talking about diseases such as Alzheimer's. We're talking about neurodegenerative disorders such as multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, ALS, and so many others. 3 years ago, some of the world's leading pharmaceutical and biotech companies met in Boston, convened by the Mass Life Sciences Center to discuss this gap between patient need and the pace of innovation in neuroscience research and development. And during this discussion, a challenge was posed. Is industry ready? Is industry willing to consider a bold new type of collaboration where companies might accomplish collectively what has been difficult for them to achieve alone? Would any companies step outside of their zones of comfort to push beyond business as usual? The companies represented on this stage, and let me say again, Abbott, Biogen Idec, EMD Serono, Janssen Research and Development, Merck, Pfizer, and Sunovion Pharmaceuticals have stepped up to that challenge. They have said, yes, we will. Yes, please give them a hand. Together with these global leaders in neuroscience, the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center is proud to have created the Massachusetts Neuroscience Consortium. Let me tell you just a bit about the consortium, with apologies to those of you who are standing on the stage. But I think it's really important to let you know what this is and why it is so novel. The consortium is a pioneering new model that's designed to leverage the rich research environment in Massachusetts for the purposes of accelerating preclinical research that's available to the industry. It is also intended to introduce academic researchers to the challenges of targeted research, and it is intended to facilitate industry-academic partnerships. The mission of this consortium is to provide the participating sponsors with a one-stop shop approach for identifying and evaluating the best preclinical targets for development, drawing from the participating research institutes all across Massachusetts. It is intended to accelerate access by pharmaceutical and biotech companies to new knowledge, data, and tools that are emerging from the Massachusetts neuroscience community. And it is intended to sponsor research funding that enables academic research teams to follow their discoveries further down the path towards commercial application. Through funding provided by the sponsors, the consortium is launching with seed funding of about $1.75 million to support initial project work. An advisory group, which is comprised of one representative from each industry funding sponsor and an elite group of academic neuroscientists drawn from the institutions around Massachusetts, will guide the work. And I'm very pleased to recognize Dr. Robert Brown, who's the chair of neurology at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, who's here today representing the caliber of scientists who will be members of that scientific advisory board. And I want to also acknowledge and thank the fact that the chancellor of the UMass Medical School, Dr. Michael Collins, is here. Thank you for being here to show your support, Chancellor. So there are a lot of consortia out there, and you may be wondering, so how is this consortium different? First of all, the consortium members will have expedited access to top talent all across Massachusetts and our neuroscience research community. Secondly, the projects are going to be short-term and results-oriented. The projects are going to fund and follow commonly accepted industry standards as identified by the sponsors. The sponsors are going to work in collaboration with each other and with the principal investigators and their teams. They're going to contribute, the sponsors, their data, their tools, their resources to the project teams to expedite the work. And most importantly, the results are going to be shared by all the participants, sponsors, and the academic principal investigators are going to have access to the use of any tools developed by each project. Now, let me say finally, why could something like this happen in Massachusetts, and maybe only in Massachusetts? Massachusetts is a center of excellence in the field of biomedical neuroscience, with world-leading researchers and clinicians representing all major fields of neurobiology and neurology. That expertise is distributed across more than a dozen world-renowned institutions. We have what may truly be the highest density of neuroscience research in the world. And secondly, we like to think that the center helped. The fact that we were here to work with industry and to work with academia to identify this need for collaboration, that we could use our convening power to reduce the barriers to collaboration and expedite access to our research community, to convene and support, and finally to serve as the neutral third party to administer and staff this consortium. To further convey the significance of this new consortium and the excitement among industry sponsors, I think it's best for you to hear from industry itself. And I'd like to introduce Jim Hoist, who's the president of EMD Serono, who will speak on behalf of the charter members, indicating, I think, already the spirit of collaboration and one for one and all, one for all and all for one. But I think, again, industry can best convey to you why this is so significant. Jim?
Thank you, Dr. Bannister, and thank you, Governor Patrick. Good morning, everyone. I'm indeed honored to be here today representing all the charter members to the consortium. As Dr. Bannister mentioned, I'm Jim Hoist. I'm the president of EMD Serono, and we're immensely proud to be part of this region's rich life sciences history, which continues to be a bellwether for innovation and growth. And we're grateful, as are the other charter members, to share our commitment to transforming patient lives with you today. And in particular, EMD Serono is very proud to be part of this new neuroscience consortium. The consortium represents an open forum approach to our industry, a chance for participating research institutions across the Commonwealth to collaborate, creating synergy of thinkers that can accelerate the identification and the evaluation of the best preclinical targets for development in this critical therapeutic area. This innovative approach promises to streamline the way that organizations pool their neuroscience research and maximize the way that we can all utilize our scarce and limited internal resources. In the end, we all share the common goal of discovering new medicines that improve the lives of patients. The consortium also marks a pivotal moment in our industry. This is a challenging time for the neuroscience research and for the life sciences industry as a whole. R&D costs have reached unparalleled heights, and many companies are rethinking their business strategies and refining their pipelines to maximize the results of their investment. As a result, limited resources and an increasingly siloed approach can have an effect of stifling innovation. This is something we simply can't afford with diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis affecting millions of people across our country. Just looking at MS, according to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, there's approximately 400,000 people with this disease in the United States alone, with 200 more people being diagnosed each week. On a worldwide basis, MS is thought to affect more than 2.1 million people. Simply put, the time to act is now. And the Neuroscience Consortium represents the type of collaborative movement driven by a sense of urgency that can deliver new therapies that have the potential of improving the lives of millions of people across the world. At EMD Serono, we have a strong commitment to serving the needs of those living with neurodegenerative diseases. We're committed to developing new treatment options and devices, as well as offering enhanced patient support services. Our ongoing work with hospitals, with industry peers, with advocacy groups, and with our leaders in government, like Governor Patrick and his administration, underscore this ongoing focus. We understand that living with these challenging diseases can be a lifelong journey, and we endeavor to accompany our patients every step of the way. Here in Massachusetts, EMD Serono's Research Institute in Billerica serves as our global R&D hub for neurodegenerative disease research. The center is home to hundreds of scientists, all dedicated to discovering new treatments for diseases like multiple sclerosis. We're proud that we continue to call the Boston area our home, and looking ahead, our commitment to patients and our vision for the future of neuroscience research in Massachusetts has never been stronger, and we're here to stay. We share the collaborative spirit espoused by the Neuroscience Consortium and strongly believe that the end result in treating patients will always be bigger than any one individual effort. I'd like to thank the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center for having the vision and commitment to make this consortium a reality. It's their leadership and passion for driving innovation in Massachusetts that brings us here today. And the continued investment that the center makes in the Commonwealth have well positioned our life sciences industry for strong growth as we look to the future. The distinguished group of leaders here today, Governor Patrick, Dr. Bannister, Dean Flyer, are all a testament to the convening power and potential that this new initiative has for our industry and the forward-looking vision that Massachusetts continues to have. Alan and Joan, your courage is admirable. I look forward to hearing you share your stories and reminding us that you are the heart at all that we do. EMD Serono and our charter members are honored to sponsor this new mission, and we all look forward to being part of the Commonwealth's latest chapter of exploring new frontiers in neuroscience research. Thank you very much.
Jim, thank you very, very much for the comments and for the support. Before I introduce the next speaker, it's very important to us at the center that you know the participants in this consortium, not just by their institutions, but by the individuals who have taken the time to come and represent their companies today. So I would like to introduce them, if I may. Dr. Doug Williams, who is Executive Vice President of Research and Development at Biogen Idec. Dr. Mike Jarvis, the Volweiler Senior Research Fellow, Associate Director, Early Discovery, Pain, Global Pharmaceutical Research and Development at Abbott. Mike Ehlers, Senior Vice President and Chief Scientific Officer for Neuroscience at Pfizer. You have some Pfizer fans in the house. Dr. Richard Hargreaves, Vice President and Worldwide Head of Research and Neuroscience at Merck. Husseini Manji, Global Head of Neuroscience R&D at Janssen Research and Development. Rick Russell, Executive Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer at Sunovion Pharmaceuticals. And I want to acknowledge and thank, who also is on stage with us, James Wessler, who's the President and CEO of the Alzheimer's Association. We have a lot of support, and we really appreciate it. I'd like to introduce now Dr. Jeffrey Flyer, who is the Dean of the Harvard Medical School, who's going to tell you a bit about the importance of this consortium in accelerating neuroscience research in the academic institutions across Massachusetts. Dean Flyer?
Okay, thank you, Susan, and it's truly an honor for me to participate in this event here with Governor Patrick, Jim Hoist of Serono, and courageous patients, and with all of those who care deeply about the challenges that we confront in the area of neurodegenerative diseases and neural diseases more broadly. This is truly a remarkable collaborative, bringing such a variety of key stakeholders together in this pre-competitive space. But actually, if you think about it, we really have little choice if we're serious about our goal of alleviating suffering caused by this broad group of diseases. Neuroscience, even more than many other aspects of biomedical science, is profoundly complex, and the previous models of drug discovery, many of which have worked well elsewhere, may really have run their limit with diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and others. And it's absolutely clear that new, bold approaches involving unprecedented kinds of collaborations are going to be vital for our success in understanding and eventually treating these devastating conditions. The community of people across Massachusetts who are studying neuroscience and neurologic disease is truly amazing, and to me, humbling to know so many members of this community. It's arguably the greatest concentration of companies and research institutes in the world relevant to this area, right here in the Boston area. At Harvard Medical School, we have an outstanding department of neurobiology, in addition to neuroscience, neurology, and neurosurgery units spread amongst all of our research institutions and hospitals. We also house the Neurodiscovery Center. MIT is the home of the McGovern and Picower Institutes. And Boston University, Tufts, Northeastern, and the UMass Medical School are each doing extraordinary work in this area, and I'm proud and honored to stand here representing these remarkable academic institutions. In a collaborative such as this, it's important to understand what each constituent actually brings to the table. And the academic research community is committed to understanding these neurologic conditions at the most basic and fundamental molecular level, but also, and critically as well, to translating these insights into ultimate clinical application. That's ultimately why we want to understand the neural system and the brain. Basic discovery and translational science are essential to our success, and we in academia have much of the infrastructure, but not all that is necessary to do it. There are lots of reasons not to do something as innovative and challenging as this kind of collaboration. It's difficult, and it forces us all to confront problems in ways that we're not accustomed to confronting them. But scientists, whether in industry or academia, are tasked ultimately to serve humanity, to alleviate suffering, to enhance human life. And when our old models cease working, it's part of our mission to try hard to develop new ones. In this respect, I'd like to thank Mark Shearman of the Serono Research Institute, Chris Flores of Johnson & Johnson, Charles Jennings of the McGovern Institute, and Adrian Ivinson of Harvard Medical School's Neurodiscovery Center as the team that worked on developing this program over the last 2 years against great odds, I think. And special thanks to the Mass Life Sciences Center, who should be commended for doggedly working to bring these people and the communities that they represent together. On behalf of the Mass academic community, I would like to thank Dr. Susan Wyndham-Bannister and her colleagues for their tireless efforts. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dean Flyer. We can throw the party, but we have to have people to come, so we appreciate that. You know, to some extent, we've started this with the end of the story. You know what we've done. But now let's talk about why we've done this. Let's talk about the beginning of the story, which is for all of us, always, the patient. The people who every day are dealing with some of these conditions and waiting for us to come up with the breakthroughs. First, I'd like to introduce Alan Krieger. Alan is a resident of Lexington, Massachusetts, and he's a former scientist, a space scientist at MIT. He has Alzheimer's. He's been kind enough to come today and talk with us, and he's currently taking a drug that is produced by Pfizer. Alan, thank you so much for coming today.
Alzheimer's disease has been part of my life for more than 30 years. I'm the fourth member of my extended family to be officially diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. My mother had it, one of her brothers had it, one of his sons, who was formerly a partner in a prestigious Boston law firm, has it now. There are rumors that other members of the family have had it or have it now, but those are just gallows humor. A few years ago, I started to lose my car. Did I park in the lot behind the shoe store or in the lot near the bank? I didn't think much about it, but my younger daughter put it in perspective. The third or fourth time that I told her that I was going to a gym that was run by two brothers who had attended Lexington High School at roughly the same time that she and her sister did, she responded by asking me, "Did you know that you have cousins in New York?" This was a quotation of the question that my mother had asked her every time they met for several years after my daughter decided to attend college at Columbia University, which is in New York. I was shocked, but I recognized the truth in what she was saying. I asked a clinical psychologist I know whether she knew a physician who specialized in Alzheimer's disease. She didn't, but she asked a colleague in Cambridge who listed a few specialists, including one at McLean Hospital in Belmont, which is within walking distance of my home. The diagnostic process required 3 sessions, if I recall correctly, which is not always the case these days. There were cognitive tests, memory tests, word puzzles, and finally an MRI scan. In a strange way, when I heard the diagnosis, I was appalled but relieved. Well, that's one thing I don't have to worry about anymore. My wife was relieved as well. She had thought that I was not listening to her when she asked me to do something I said I would and then I didn't do it. Within a day, one day of my hearing the diagnosis, I received a phone call from the Alzheimer's Association inviting my wife, now designated as a care partner, and me to a series of very helpful orientation sessions about coping strategies such as get a medic alert bracelet, carry a notebook to write down, this pocket, that you might want to remember, fill out a calendar of future activities, and most important, don't multitask. That last one was very hard for me because I've always tried to keep 3 or 4 balls in the air at all times. My life has changed in a number of ways. I'll give you a few examples. A few years ago, I wouldn't have needed to read this talk. I would have thought about what I wanted to say the night before the talk. I would have made an outline. I would have read it through before arriving here. Then I would have put the outline in my pocket and started talking. Nowadays, that's one thing. Nowadays, I have difficulty finding things. I had to find in order to find the stapler for this text, I had to go through 3 or 4 desk drawers. I have difficulty making decisions because I can't remember the logical sequence that leads to the conclusion. I always have the haunting feeling that I've forgotten something important and I can't review my train of thought to figure out what it is that I've forgotten. For most of my professional career, I had been a physicist who used computers to analyze the results of astronomical observations and physical measurements. I recently checked my bookcase and found programmers' manuals for 16 computer languages from AWK, that's AWK, to Z80 assembly language, although the majority of my work was done in 2 languages, Fortran and C. If you know computers, you know what those are. After I retired, I became involved in helping people who had limited experience with computers learn how to use free and open source software. I was one of the moderators for a website that helped people learn to use Linux. I enjoyed doing this. It's fun to try to figure out the cause of their problems and provide understandable solutions in language that a new user can use without being confused. But I felt compelled to give up this activity about a year ago. When I was asked a question, I knew that there was a fairly easy solution to the clueless newbie's problem, and that I used to know that solution, but I simply could not retrieve the information and generate a coherent step-by-step procedure that a newbie could follow. So I resigned from that activity. I miss it. For many years, we owned a chalet, which is a fancy name for a shack on the side of a hill, in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, where we went hiking with our kids in the summer and cross-country skiing in the winter. We've given up cross-country skiing because I get confused on trails we've been touring for 30 years, and I don't want to get lost in the woods. In the years after we retired, my wife and I had gone traveling at least once a year. We've been to Europe a few times, as well as Egypt, East and South Africa, China, Australia, New Zealand, the Galapagos Islands. While I was a graduate student, my doctoral thesis research had required that I spend a total of about 11 months over a 2-year period on a mountaintop in Bolivia, so we had ample time to visit most of the attractions of South America, including the road from La Paz to Coroico in the Yungas Valley, which is justifiably called the most dangerous road in the world in the TV commercials. What they don't tell you is that the reason for that is most of the truck drivers on the road are drunk. At any rate, since my diagnosis with Alzheimer's disease, I have not been farther from home than visiting our grandchildren in Springfield, Massachusetts. I have plenty of time to travel, but I feel ill at ease in unfamiliar places where I'm unable to carry out my routine. My world is shrinking. I try to do what I can to help. The folks at McLean asked me if I wanted to participate in a clinical trial of a new drug. I agreed immediately. In addition to that trial, which is still in progress, I have donated a skin sample for a DNA study, so it really was skin off my backside. I've undergone a series of periodic MRI scans to monitor my brain size as a function of time. I've undergone, and I'm ready to take on anything else that I can do. As I said, this appears to be a hereditary condition in my mother's family. I have children and grandchildren, as well as a sister and a bunch of cousins who have children and grandchildren of their own, in addition to the families of all the other Alzheimer's patients. If there's anything I can do to keep this wolf away from their doors, I ought to do it. In that spirit, there are a few things that I learned during my career as a space scientist that are more generally applicable, and I'd like to pass on. First, collaborative efforts between government, academic institutions, and industry can be fruitful in unexpected ways. For example, the low-dose X-ray machines that are used to inspect both travelers and their baggage at airports were developed by a company that I used to be a vice president of as an analogous technology to the visible light scanners used to digitize photographs of the X-ray emissions of the solar corona taken during NASA missions, i.e. the work was originally sponsored by the government, and then a private company found a way to make big bucks out of it, at least little bucks, moderate-sized bucks. Second, progress is often made through informal communication between researchers. MIT graduates will recognize this as the so-called Building 20 research, Building 20 effect, where researchers and engineers working on different problems would engage one another in conversations in the halls of a World War II temporary building that was a hotbed of innovation for about 50 years. This consortium is a new and promising approach to advancing Alzheimer's disease research through collaboration between companies and academic institutions that are leading the way in the search for a cure. I'm proud to see this happening in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We're proud that you would come and speak with us today. We're proud that you're proud of us, and we're proud to have you in Massachusetts. And my regards to your wife and to your family. Next, I'd like to introduce Joanne D'Amico Stone, who's a resident of Waltham, Massachusetts. Joanne was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1993, and she is currently taking a drug produced by Biogen Idec. Joanne, thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you.
My name is Joanne D'Amico Stone, and I have had MS for 18 and a half years. I want to start by saying thank you to Biogen Idec for asking me to tell my story to all of you. I was diagnosed in December of 1993, and at that time there were no medications available. Today there are 4 or 5 injectable drugs and 2 oral medications. I had been diagnosed for a few months when the first MS injectable drug became available. The problem with that was it was in high demand and very short supply. You had to go into a lottery to be able to get a chance to even be on the drug. When I did eventually get on it, I became immune to it in about 2 or 3 years. And of course, I had to go off. To my luck, it was then that Abranex had just been approved for relapsing remitting MS. So I went on it, and I've been on it ever since. I credit Abranex for me being able to move and be as independent as I am. I am hopeful with the research this new collaborative is going to be doing will lead to finding new and better medications as well as a possible cure for all of these diseases. I have continued to take my Abranex all these years because when I was diagnosed, my son was only 5 years old, and he had just started kindergarten, and I had to be able to do everything that all the other mothers were doing. Every time I would get frustrated having to give myself the intramuscular injection, I realized the shots were allowing me to do the things at the school and that my son wanted me to do. I was able to be a library mother when he was in elementary school, and in middle school I was a parent on the parent council, and in high school I then became a lacrosse parent, and rarely did I miss a game or any school event. I would go to all these things using my cane, and then, more often than not, I would have to be using my 3-wheel scooter. And my new hope now with this collaborative is to someday, in the distant future, be able to dance with my son at his wedding and possibly play with grandchildren as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. We hope to be dancing alongside you. Thank you very much for being here today. Before I open it up for some questions here on the stage, let me again just extend some very warm thanks. I would like to again thank the governor for being here this morning to make this announcement. I'd like to thank the charter sponsors of this consortium and everyone who participated in today's event. And I'd like to extend as well my personal thanks to 2 members of my team, Beth Nicholas and Pamela Norton, for their unflagging support over the years we have worked on this, and especially as well to Adrian Iverson, to Chris Flores, to Mark Shearman, and to Charles Jennings, who have really been with us every step of the way. We thank you for your expertise, and we will all work together to make sure that this is a great success. Thank you.